We refer to the month of Av with the phrase Menachem Av. And most people translate that as the month in which we have comfort. Menachem Av could also mean a father that comforts. We turn to Hashem, our Father, for comfort during these difficult times. We don't always understand things. We don't always have the right perspective. But if we believe that it's coming from our loving Father, then somehow it's good. There's a story that's told by the author of Living Emunah of a young yeshiva boy who actually grew up as a Baal Tshuva, but grew beautifully in his Torah learning. And he became a star in the Beis Medrash. He not only learned well for himself, he really helped so many of the other boys in the yeshiva to understand the Torah. And yet tragedy struck, and his life was taken at a very young age. The guys in yeshiva were distraught. Couldn't understand how this could happen. So the Rosh Yeshiva turned to the famous Rabbi Shalom Shwadron of Yerushalayim to try and give some inspiration and chizuk and strength to the yeshiva boys. So he came and shared the following story, that it was in the 1920s when many of the yeshivas in Israel were in financial difficulties. And they selected a Rabbi Bork, a very influential and powerful speaker, to travel to America to raise the necessary funds. In his travels around America, he came to Chicago. And in Chicago, gave an inspiring speech on Shabbos. After Shabbos, many people came over to give Yasher Koach and to give their donations. And there was one person in particular, a Mr. Yerachmiel Wexler, who came over and said that he would love to actually go to Yerushalayim, set up business there, and help the economy of Israel in that way. So he took a trip together with his son Yechezkel. And he thought it's also a great opportunity for his son Yechezkel to get involved in Torah learning. And this was in the late 1920s. In Israel, Yechezkel signed up to be a Talmid at the Hebron Yeshiva. He started learning beautifully. 6 months later, it was in the summer 1929, it was a terrible massacre, the Hebron Yeshiva, and this Yechezkel Wexler, who was learning so beautifully, had his life taken from him. Terrible tragedy. The family sat Shiva, and very, very sad over what took place. Approximately a year later, this same Rabbi Bork made another trip to America. And this time he said, I simply cannot go to Chicago. It's hard for me to face Mr. Wexler. I feel some level of guilt of indirectly having his son be in that situation, causing the fate that actually took place. But Hashem knows better. And while Rabbi Bork was traveling around New York, he bumped into Mr. Wexler. And Mr. Wexler said to him, there's no need to feel guilty. Everything that happens is for a reason. My son was able to go to Olam Haba having learned Torah. It was destined that at that young age his life would be taken, whether he was in Hebron or whether he was somewhere else. What a tremendous Boteach Hashem, what a tremendous individual, has a high level of Amunah that everything happens. As Rabbi Shwadron explained to the yeshiva boys, it wasn't just a incident where this young person's life was plucked out for no reason. He was able to learn and go to Olam Haba with a tremendous amount of Torah. What takes place during the 9 days, what we remember, we don't always understand why it happened and why for so many thousands of years we're still mourning. But our charge and our message from the name of the month of Menachem Av is that we need to have full emunah in Hashem, the loving Father who's going to bring comfort and consolation to us. And amidst Hashem, that should happen during these times. May Mashiach come, and Rabbi Amen.